This special news report on Cheyenne's tornado is brought to you by the people at Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power Company. We at Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank our customers for their patience and understanding of inconveniences caused by Monday's tornado. It's this understanding, but more importantly, the great spirit of neighbors helping neighbors in the rebuilding and cleanup effort that underscores our pride of our community. We are pleased to be bringing you this program free of any further commercial interruptions. With tonight's special report, here is Bruce McCallum.
Good evening. Monday, July 16th started out like most any other summer day. Most of us leaving for work, cursing the start of another week, or others planning the day's activities at home. Even the forecast was nice. Partly cloudy, it read, a slight chance of afternoon and evening thunder showers with a possibility of large hail and gusty winds. A typical July forecast for Cheyenne indeed. But when disaster struck, it hit fast and furious, leaving nothing but skeletal remains. Those close to the tornado said it sounded like a whole bunch of jetliners flying overhead, that the noise was terrifying. Others away from the scene said they thought the cloud was actually smoke and that there may have been a fire. No matter, when all was said and done, Cheyenne had just suffered its worst natural disaster in history. For James and Linda McKinnon, Monday was a particularly black day. Their 14-month-old baby David, the twister's only fatality. Scores were injured. Cheyenne's hospitals were called chaotic, but everyone got the attention they needed. It only took about 20 minutes for the tumultuous cloud to finish with us, little time for warning. The storm roared across Warren Air Force Base, narrowly missing state offices and the governor's mansion. Then it swept eastward like a top at full speed through 2 residential areas and a trailer court, toppling power and phone lines, tearing up cables, causing gas leaks, rendering some 1,000 homeless and countless others without communication, their homes reduced to kindling. Estimated damage to Cheyenne, over $16 million, over $40 million if you include the National Guard hangar and planes. Truly a disaster area. A special command post was set up in a firehouse near the hard-hit areas to organize a recovery. The Wyoming National Guard was called in to assist local authorities keep order and start to put the pieces back together. Needless to say, groups like the Red Cross and Salvation Army were busy mobilizing disaster aid for victims. Cheyenne residents unaffected by the storm offered everything they had to help those left with nothing. Tornadoes have been a shadowy phenomenon for decades. During the next half hour, we will not only show you what has transpired since Monday, but also look to see if we could have been better prepared. Bob Beebe, meteorologist in charge of the Cheyenne Bureau of the National Weather Service, first explains a tornado.
John, a tornado is a unique kind of storm. It is nature's most destructive, violent storm, and it is a consequence of updrafts and downdrafts in thunderstorms that result in some cases in a violent rotation.
Now, there wasn't any watch or warning put out, or at least a warning wasn't put out until right at the last minute when the tornado had touched down. I was wondering if you could tell me why it took so long to get a warning out on that storm.
John, I don't think it took very long in the usual sense because a tornado warning is not issued until we have a confirmed tornado in existence. A watch, on the other hand, is issued when we think conditions are right for the development of tornadoes. In this particular instance, we were not confident enough that it was a tornado situation so that a watch was not issued in this case. But backing up to the tornado, a tornado warning is not issued until we actually have a sighting of a tornado that's either on the ground or it looks very dangerous.
Is there any idea of how fast this storm was traveling?
This storm was traveling very slowly. Indeed, that's to our advantage here, in that it was moving about 10 miles an hour. The total path length was about 6 to 7 miles, and the total time duration was about 30 minutes, and this adds up to about 10 miles an hour.
Just how big was this storm? Was it large for Wyoming, or?
John, this was the most destructive tornado that Wyoming has ever seen. It was indeed a large tornado. Now, the normal course of events for a tornado is to develop first as a funnel at the cloud base and a rotation of dust at the ground. These later join, and you see the characteristic funnel. This did not happen in this case, but as it moved from the beginning, it did rather minor damage for the first mile or so. And I think we're fortunate it moved across the golf course and did not hit any buildings in its early life cycle. Then, as it hit the hangars, it was probably 100 yards wide or thereabouts. As it moved along the north edge of the airport and got into the Nemo area, it was from 50 to 100 yards wide. Then there was a period over in Buffalo Ridge where it was perhaps 200 yards wide. Then over open area, and this was almost 30 minutes later at the mobile home court, it was, it was tremendous. Even though from here it looked like a small tornado, nonetheless the devastation was over a width of perhaps 3 or 4 blocks.
What can be done, particularly here in Cheyenne, though, to take care of getting out notifications and warning people next time a storm moves through?
Well, first of all, John, it's been 110 years since Cheyenne has had a tornado within the city limits. As the city grows, our chances increase, but even though it's been 110 years since we've had a tornado, it's sort of like flipping a coin. Each flip, you begin a new ball game. So our chances, we really start over with the probability of a tornado. It's still a rare event in Wyoming. What could we do better? Well, whenever a tornado develops over a city, it is impossible to get out warnings any more quickly than we did. There are a couple of things that we could do. For example, there were no sirens in Indian Hills or in Buffalo Ridge. That would perhaps be a help. This, of course, costs money. Another thing that we could do in the Weather Service is to have a two-way radio communications, because about 5 minutes after the storm developed, we were out of telephone contact. We do not have any radio communications with law enforcement agencies, civil defense, or anybody. So I think that we need to take steps to get this. Now, the telephone lines here are all underground, as are our power lines, but nonetheless, something happened somewhere that our telephone communications went out. And so we stood here helplessly, not able to get it out of communication with the outside world.
A number of city and volunteer agencies went to work immediately after the tornado struck. Reed Lovato chronicles that response and summarizes damage to public buildings.
City police, fire, water, and public works crews were mobilized almost immediately after the twister had done its work. Cheyenne Police Chief Byron Rookstool talks about the response and what his department learned from the disaster.
When the storm first come down, we sent officers into the area immediately, and with their systems that we have in the car, they started announcing to the residents that there was a tornado coming. One of our officers, Chuck Cates, in fact, was right out in it, blew the windows out of the squad car. He himself grabbed a woman and pushed her down and laid on top of her. And like I said, he was right in the middle of the thing. However, we had some problems because the phone system went out at police headquarters, getting officers to come in. Most of the officers become aware of it and come in on their own. The first 2 hours was kind of tough because we didn't know where everybody was at. Once we got our supervisors on the spot and got control of it, it went amazingly well. Like I said, I'm really proud of the guys. We set up a command post out at the fire station. So the first night, everybody was on duty. From there, we set up 2 shifts consisting of 12-hour shifts for everybody. We operated out of a Winnebago that was supplied to us by Larimer County Sheriff's Office out of Colorado, and that functioned as our command post, and they had the communications equipment there for us. Some of the problems that we come up with was lack of proper communications equipment, lack of portable lighting, and lack of a command post. We need a unit like the unit we have from Larimer County. It was unbelievable. Northern Colorado, Larimer County, Fort Collins, Weld County, Greeley Police Departments, Loveland Police Department, all those people were up here, and they'd bring a squad of people and we'd assign them to the disaster area. The National Guard did a fantastic job. Just the fact that those people were present, it helped from the prevention aspect. People in the area was volunteering, and we couldn't utilize them from the standpoint of security because it wasn't in uniform. But it was unbelievable the response we got from other law enforcement agencies and from the general public and the National Guard.
Fortunately, though the path of the tornado passed through the airport, the city shops, which are located in an airport hangar, were spared, allowing immediate mobilization. Public Works Director Gary Grunkemeyer.
Primarily what we did Monday evening before dark were work with the search and rescue effort to make sure that there weren't people buried under debris. We were there to lift the debris with our equipment or our manpower or whatever was necessary. We also did an awful lot of traffic control in not only the directing of traffic, but the hauling of barricades. The street and alley and the traffic people hauled barricades almost all evening, getting ready for the guardsmen and the police to take over. As far as Tuesday's operation, the first thing we did was we sent in street sweepers in both areas to clean up the nails, the debris which tears up tires, and there's been a lot of tires lost in this effort. Not only on our own equipment, but on police vehicles, guard vehicles, in volunteers' vehicles.
Grunkemeyer said some city crews worked until midnight Monday night. Others were on duty all night long. Sanitation workers and vehicles aided in the cleanup, as well as office volunteers, summer employees, and CETA employees. The fire department provided use of the Del Range Fire Station as a command post and portable generating units to light the building, which was without power. At 8 p.m. Monday night, while the city was still reeling under the impact of the storm, Mayor Don Erickson held a press conference at the VA hospital to confirm what most already suspected. Cheyenne had a major disaster on its hands.
I just finished talking with the governor, and I've asked the governor to request federal assistance and to identify this as a disaster area. The governor will then pursue that request through his channels.
Volunteer organizations like the Salvation Army and the Red Cross responded quickly and efficiently. Churches opened their doors. Emergency shelter for victims was arranged, but the spirit of the community prevailed, and neighbors, friends, and family took in most of the homeless.
It's a beautiful thing to see in a community like Cheyenne when the rest of the community rallies behind the other folks. What we're trying to do is help out with the things that people may not today realize that they need, but tomorrow and the next day they're going to be thinking, we need to provide some food. We need to think about getting relocated. How are we going to pay the first month's rent? Where are we going to get our new clothes? This is the way Red Cross operates in a situation like this.
In the days following the disaster, the Salvation Army, with a mobile canteen loaned from Denver, fed volunteers working the cleanup. The night of the storm, the Kiwanis Club set up a feeding operation at the Del Range Fire Station. Union Pacific sent hundreds of men and much material and equipment to aid victims. Anywhere between $400,000 and $700,000 damage was done to two pieces of city property, the Airport Golf Club and the Air Guard hangar and office building. The Buffalo Ridge School, one of the most populous in the district, was severely damaged. Most of the south side of the building will have to be rebuilt. About 150 first, second, and third graders will have to be bused, probably to Clark School, for a year. 6 classrooms, the kitchen, and gym should be usable by fall.
The following information could be very valuable to you if you're a resident living in the tornado-damaged areas in Cheyenne. The Laramie County Survival Council suggests piling all debris on the side of the street. Do not attempt to haul your own debris. It will be picked up. If you have lost valuables, please do not attempt to check on these at this time. All items that are turned in will be kept in a safe place. Jewelry, guns, and money may be stored at the Wyoming State Bank. Contact Robert Godfrey at the bank for information. Please check with the City Engineer's Office at 637-6306 on all contractors for repairs. Beware of unlicensed, unqualified contractors because they will be in the area. If you have not contacted an insurance agent, call an agent and leave your name and a number and where you can be reached. And stay tuned with KYCU Channel 5 for all updates on services in the tornado disaster area.
When disaster such as the one we experienced occurs, everyone gets involved and plays a big part in maintaining some kind of order. Laura Blumenthal has the county beat and talked with some of that area's key figures.
The coordination from beginning up until now has been a result of many agencies. County-wise, that has included the Laramie County Sheriff's Office, the Cheyenne-Laramie County Civil Defense, and the county commissioners, who are all working to make it as easy as possible on an area that has sustained millions of dollars in damages. Sheriff Dennis Flynn discussed what the Sheriff's Office will continue to do until the cleanup effort is well on its way and the victims begin to get settled.
Our primary concern is a continuation and protection of the property until it is fully removed and gone through. There are a lot of small items, jewelry and so forth, that are of concern to the people, and it takes some time going through and trying to locate all the things that they do want to get out. So the continuation of the security of the area.
Do you think the operation could have been handled any better than it was?
No, Laura, I really don't. I think the civil defense with Dave Gill, I think the Union Pacific has been fantastic with the equipment and men that they've brought in from all over. The assistance that we received from Jim Spence and the National Guard, the minute we called, they responded. And I got everything I wanted and needed from the people that I asked for. So our men, the deputies, as soon as we called them, they responded. And I think with the limited amount of time that we did have to work with, well, I think the men all did great.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
The only problem that we really encountered was a lot of flat tires, and I know a lot of other agencies did too, but I think the flat tires are probably pretty minor to some of the devastation and the life that was lost right here. I think that we're just fortunate with losing tires and that we didn't have a great loss of life.
Though the initial action was swift and the momentum keeps building, there were some problems. Some people are still wondering why they weren't warned enough in advance to be able to prepare for the disaster. Civil Defense Director of the Cheyenne-Laramie County Office, Dave Gill, talks about how it could have been different had there been a citywide warning system.
So what is going to be done now is more of a coordinated effort to possibly purchase, and we would certainly think that the money involved is not substantial, to completely outfit the city of Cheyenne with a warning system that's going to be adequate to warn the people. Now we have to stress this, that an outdoor warning system means outdoor. The people inside are not going to hear it. And there's another system that's coming into effect that is working with the National Weather Service. It's called NOAA Radio. And this will be something in the near future that will help warn people who are inside, because when it is set off by the National Weather Service, it will alert you people in your homes as to what potential disaster that you have pending. I think that we should have to go ahead on our own and put on our warning systems, even if it costs the city and county to do it themselves. How can you put a price of $50,000 to do the entire city with a brand new system? If you save one life, then it's paid for itself.
Now that the area has been declared a federal disaster area by President Carter, massive federal aid will now begin coming in for the victims. But some may be asking if the federal funds will be picking up the tab for all the damage. County Commissioner Wynn Hickey comments.
We may have to pick some up out of cash reserve. I would have no idea at this point how extensive it would be, because we're just in the process of moving ahead. Have no idea what bills are going to be. Some things the federal government won't pick up, but most of it we expect to be taken care of by them.
For those of you who wrote down the number to call at the city engineer's office, here is the number that you should call. Another one, it's 637-6265. For the city engineer, call 637-6265. As the county was notifying all local agencies of our situation, state and federal governments went to the aid of the victims. It wasn't long before Governor Hirschler declared an emergency and asked for federal assistance.
I have called the White House and talked with Gene Eidenberg, who's on the president's staff, and he's assured me that they will expedite it and get things moving the minute it hits their office in Washington.
Captain John Cornelison says that the Wyoming National Guard and the Air National Guard, as well as Warren Air Force Base, reacted to the disaster at Governor Herschler's request.
We've conducted search and rescue operations. We've had helicopters on aerial surveillance and damage assessment. We provided medical assistance. We had medical aid teams out, ambulances out. We have also provided, in a couple of cases, pure water, drinking water, with our guard water trailers, and just basically helped out wherever needed. A big part of the involvement has been providing assistance to local law enforcement officials in the damaged area.
The State Disaster and Civil Defense Agency did the backup work so that Herschler could ask for federal help. Coordinator Bill Dreiling explains.
Well, we are the coordinating agency for this disaster assistance process, and we contacted the Federal Disaster Assistance Regional Office. They sent 2 people up that evening and did an on-the-ground survey of the damage. We did a flyover the next morning on the damage, and they felt that the process should be put in motion to request a presidential declaration. And so we sat down with them and prepared the necessary information for the governor for his perusal. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, then we met with the governor. He reviewed the proposal, signed it, and it was sent into the regional office in Denver, from there to Washington, and that initiated the process.
The governor's administrative assistant, Dick Skinner, provided the liaison with state, city, county, and federal officials.
There was a meeting at 9 a.m. on Tuesday in the mayor's chambers with the sheriff's office, the local police department, highway patrol, the Air Force Base, the National Guard, civil defense units of both the state and local level, and city officials to ascertain in where we were after 18 hours. The governor's office was represented at that meeting. I was that representative, and then I was able to come back and brief the governor on future steps that we were going to be called upon to do. Of course, at that time, the Federal Disaster and Assistance Administration people from Denver were there to tell the mayor about the proclamation that he had to issue, and then from there they put together the backup documentation that was required for Governor Herschler to request of President Carter that parts of Laramie County and the city of Cheyenne be declared a disaster area.
Insurance Commissioner John Langdon is critical of how insurance companies are responding to the victims' needs.
And I went out there myself and just haphazardly, arbitrarily talked to 14 people. And of the 14 people, only one had been contacted by an agent, and all had notified, or an adjuster, all had notified either their agency or their adjuster. I even had one lady tell me that she'd called her agency, and the agency said they were too busy to look up her policy for her. And this just simply has to cease. These people in the what I would consider very much a disaster area are not very experienced with tornadoes. They're at a loss. They don't know what to do, and they need the expert advice of their agents and their companies and their adjusters, and of course they need ours too. And frankly, I don't think that these agencies and these adjusters have done their bit.
But insurance officials disagree with Langdon. Governor Herschler says he hopes people will be generous to the victims of the tornado.
It's going to be terribly inconvenient for many of these people at this time, because with Frontier Days coming, most of our motels are going to be filled, and it's going to be awfully difficult. And I will hope that our citizens here will reach out as they have in the past, and find jobs they have done, and allow some of those people to come into their own homes. And I'm sure that many of them will do that.
And with the human side of the tragedy, here's Keith McCord.
Modern convenience we take for granted every day, getting a glass of water out of the kitchen faucet, or maybe even using the telephone each and every day to call a friend or a relative. And even doing something simple as picking up the morning mail. A lot of folks in this city can't do a lot of these things anymore, simply because of Monday's storm.
We've said it before. It looks like a war zone.
but nonetheless, the people are coping with the situation. The cleanup effort has not only involved members of the National Guard, city and county and state maintenance crews, but neighbors as well. Neighbors helping neighbors. Here, let me pitch in. I've got a pickup. Let's load it up. That's more or less been the mood. And the attitude of those who have lost so much is that of, I haven't given up, and the faster we get this mess cleaned up, the faster our lives will get back to normal.
I know it's a hell of a tragedy. Everybody's just cooperating with everybody. My neighbor's leveled. I don't have that much damage, and we're good friends. It's just a big cleanup, and we're trying our best. We're going to rebuild, and we're going to stay here, and I'm going to help my neighbor rebuild. It's a mess.
Has that been pretty much the tone of everybody in the area? Just pitch in and help where you can, and just, you know, here's a can of beer and let's keep plugging along?
Everybody has been fantastic, and we'd like to thank everybody because it's been unreal how people have come in and helped, and even protecting the place. You know, the police, the security, it's unreal.
What about some of the modern conveniences? You know, your telephone's gone, your power most likely is shut off. I'm not sure about your house, but how have you been getting along every night and every day?
Just good relation, good friends. We've had all the meals we needed, places to stay. We stayed here last night without any lights, but and we're gonna continue to stay here now.
Bob and Linda Corso, well, they're pretty lucky compared to others. Minor damage only, and they'll be back on their feet before too long. Marty and Shelley Voles have been living in the Buffalo Ridge area for about a year and a half. For all intents and purposes, their house is gone.
Don't know what to do, really. We've got a place to stay. We've got relation in town, and that's where we're staying. There's been more people out here to help than you. I'd like to thank everybody. It's just great. Everybody's helping one another and everything, getting what they can out, you know. And everybody's cooperating. It's fantastic.
Some of the modern conveniences of home, the water, the telephone, everything else is more or less gone. What do you do? How are you coping with that?
It's hard. Believe me, it's hard. We've had everything shut off and our calls forwarded, but it's really hard.
The people are helping out in another way, too, with donations. At the Salvation Army Center at 20th and Maxwell in Cheyenne, the donations of clothing and other items fill up an entire room. Captain James Miller.
If the person comes in and they're in the area, and we pretty well know where the street division is of the need, we're just giving it to them. Straight out, no reservations, period.
As much as they want to take?
As much as they want to take. As you can see, we're going to have plenty here.
A humorous side to the story. Cameraman Pat Merrick found this sign in the Buffalo Ridge area. A note to tourists. You can help clean the neighborhood. $1 per look. Now, gawking will cost you $50, and it's only 2 bits for just passing through. Around the block for just a thin dime and a nickel. A bargain for the looters. Just $75, and you can carry away as much as you want. Then there's the 38 special for night prowlers. We're still not sure what that one means.
For those of you who were directly touched by the storm, our deepest sympathies. For those volunteers who took time away from their normal lives to lend a hand, many, many thanks. And for those of you who tuned in tonight, thank you and good night.
We at Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power Company have brought you this special program. And again, we wish to sincerely thank you for your understanding and cooperation in the aftermath of this week's tornado.